Drownings that we're seeing in KwaZulu-Natal this year, not as high as in other provinces. How are you getting it right in Durban?
I think the municipalities and the Lifesaving clubs can take the credit for that. We've managed over the last 5 years to increase the number of lifeguards on the KZN coastline. The municipalities in particular have year on year extended the coverage of the beaches, and that has really had a big impact on reducing the number of fatalities, because the lifeguards are there to rescue people when they get into difficulty.
There's always a great deal of focus, James, on our beaches during this time of year. But how prevalent are incidents in private residences, such as private pools or our rivers and dams in rural areas?
The pool drownings, we only had 2 reported in KZN, but I think many of the drownings in private residences aren't reported through to Lifesaving. I think purely because of the embarrassment of the family involved and the people that are responsible for not protecting their pools and not supervising their children. So those stats are probably underreported. But the figures we do have for drownings in rivers and dams is a big problem in KZN. We had 14 people lose their lives since the 1st of December. And I think the reason for that is KZN has a large rural population, and a lot of the kids are not taught how to swim, and they end up drowning in these rivers and dams.
So there is a great deal of work still to be done on the awareness and education side when it comes to our rural areas, James.
Yes, definitely. That seems to be the biggest problem area at the moment.
All right. How prevalent was drunken and disorderly behavior on our beaches this season?
It was particularly bad yesterday on the 1st. We pulled hundreds of drunk people out of the water along our coastline. People that would definitely have drowned had they not been removed from the water. So it's a huge problem, and there was a number of stabbings on the beaches as well, which is all related to drunkenness.
It must be a really mammoth task to manage crowds of these numbers during the holiday season. Durban itself, we understand, received 3 million visitors. What are the key challenges facing lifesavers in the course of their duties, especially during this time of year, James?
I think it's twofold. One is the overcrowding with the huge numbers that we see, like we had yesterday. Fortunately, it's only 1 or 2 days a year. But it is a daunting task, almost impossible at times, to control crowds of that nature when it's just basically overcrowded. And then thrown into that, as we've already spoken about, the drunkenness. Having to control drunk people is more difficult than the sober ones.
How do members of the public contact you, James, very quickly if they wanted to volunteer? And how does this process work? Do you train volunteers, and what's the criteria you use to select candidates?
We have a swimming requirement, so the people must be proficient swimmers before we can accept them into the organisation. And the voluntary clubs are all the way along the coastline. We have 82 lifesaving clubs around the country. If you just go to lifesaving.co.za, you can have a look there and find the voluntary club nearest to you.
James Ross, thank you for your time on the PM News Desk. He's the Lifesaving SA spokesperson, chatting to us on the line there from Durban, KwaZulu-Natal.